Okay, welcome back to Virginia Free Interviews the Candidates. Today I'm joined by Justin Fairfax, an attorney from Fairfax County, who is running for the Democratic nomination for Lieutenant Governor on June 13th. Justin, introduce yourself and tell us why you're running for Lieutenant Governor.
Yes, Chris. First of all, thank you so much for having me on. Thank you to Virginia Free for all the great work that you do around the Commonwealth of Virginia. As you mentioned, I'm running for Lieutenant Governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. The Democratic primary is June the 13th, and be honored to earn the support of the folks watching. And I'm running, Chris, as I've shared across the Commonwealth of Virginia over the last year. We've been in this race really to give people the same shot in life that I got, and frankly, to give them more economic security and opportunity. We want more folks to be able to affordably buy a home, to be able to send their kids to college without taking on crushing student loan debt. We want more people to get access to capital to start and grow their own small businesses. And we want more folks to be able to move into higher paying what are called middle skill jobs. These are jobs that pay, on average 3, 4, 5 times minimum wage, and they can change the economic trajectory for a family and for a community. So we want to see economic growth around the Commonwealth of Virginia, both for all of our families and our communities. And I've traveled really to every region in the state, South Side, Southwest, Hampton Roads, Central Virginia, and the Valley, and of course throughout Northern Virginia. And we've spread that message, and it really has resonated. And I think we can make great change and provide people with that security and opportunity.
Well, that's great to hear. Economic growth is absolutely critical. As you've seen recently, probably, Standard & Poor's came out with some concerns about our bond rating, our general obligation bond rating for the Commonwealth, reflective of our economic position. And while it's inappropriate to point fingers at any one thing, sequestration has a big play in that. What do you see on the campaign trail, and what are people doing to try to get more economic growth for the Commonwealth, and what are you proposing?
Yeah, so a few things, and you mentioned our bond rating, which has been AAA, for as long as we can remember, and we want to keep it strong because obviously that keeps down our borrowing costs, and it makes us be able to finance things and to continue to grow across the Commonwealth. I was just down in Roanoke about 2 or 3 days ago, and spoke with the Roanoke Times and with a number of folks there. We have a lot of support there. The mayor of Roanoke and a lot of the leadership there are behind us. And actually, we spent a lot of time talking about this very subject. How do we continue to diversify and to grow our economy? And I think some of the keys are continuing, again, to be a place that's welcoming to businesses, and particularly small business growth. We know that 97% of businesses in the Commonwealth of Virginia are small businesses. My wife, Dr. Serena Fairfax, and I actually own a small business. We bought a family dental practice about 10 years ago. And that has done very well. I've been able to employ people, pay taxes, and continue to provide opportunities for people. But we need to make that possible for more people. And the way that we, frankly, were able to have our own small business was many of the things that I talked about. We came out of graduate school. We had each 6 figures of student loan debt. But we were able to access capital to both buy a small business and to buy a home in the same year because that debt was manageable. We had interest rates that were at historic lows around 2 and 3%. And so even with 6 figures of that kind of debt, we were able to start our economic lives sooner. And that has made a tremendous difference for us over the last decade. And we want that, for everyone. Again, we talked about middle skill jobs. There are 175,000 middle skill jobs open today in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we don't have to create those jobs. We just need to fill them. And when I was in Roanoke, I was talking about the local scene, and they said that they have 2 of these middle skill jobs for every, one person who's qualified to fill them. So people, can immediately really get an on-ramp into this new economy, but they need the training, they need the certification. And the 2 biggest barriers to that training and certification, one is the cost of the classes and the courses to get the certification. So we've got to provide a bridge so that people can afford to get that training. But then 2, this is often not talked about, it is the opportunity cost of not working while you're getting that training. So if you got to go to a class for 6, 9, or 12 months, who's putting food on the table? Who's paying the rent? Who's helping to pay for the kids? So if we can give people that bridge to get that training certification, it will change the entire trajectory of their earning potential of their economic lives. And the reports say that that would bring in, filling those 175,000 jobs would bring in $1 billion in additional income to Virginia's families. It would bring in $54 million of tax revenue to our general
Wow.
fund. And this is all, again, without raising a dime in taxes. This is really addressing that market failure, that inability of people to really fill those middle skill jobs and get that training. So I think that's a great place for us to start, and it's one of the places that we pursue.
Okay, it's a great data point. 175,000, if I heard you correctly.
That's right.
Middle
Absolutely.
skill jobs.
Yes.
What is a middle skill job?
Yes, no, a great question. So middle skill jobs are jobs that require more than a 4-year high school diploma, but less than a 4-year college degree. And
Oh,
so, these are, some examples are dental technicians. I
huh?
mentioned that my wife and I own a family dental practice. We have some great people that work for her, including, excuse me, some dental technicians, some of whom, make upwards of 60, 70 plus $1,000. And they, went and got, a year or two of certification at a community college and training. And they can, instead of, having to work a minimum wage job, which we know a lot of great people do, but they want opportunity to be able to get higher paying jobs. Minimum wage pays $14,000 per year, working full time. So 7.25
Mm,
an hour, 40 hours a week, pays $14,000 a year. If you can go from 14,000 to making 50, 60, 70,000 after getting a year or two of training, it changes what's possible in your life. Also, these primarily jobs are jobs, these middle skill jobs are jobs that you can't outsource. So it's not like these jobs are going away to other
right.
countries. So you talk about, again, dental technicians, long distance truck drivers, certified welders. These are jobs where you hire locally. And a study was done that for every one job that requires an advanced degree, graduate degree, you have 2 jobs that require just a bachelor's or associate's degree, and you have 7 jobs, 7 of these middle skill jobs. So that's the ratio. And for the 7 jobs that are available in this middle skill job market, again, the hiring is done locally. And so this is a big boost to local economies. And these jobs exist all over the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we want to give people that bridge so that they can take that opportunity and really, again, have their earning potential increase dramatically, their economic security and opportunity really be something that's real for them. That's at the heart of the American dream.
And how do we get to doing that? How do we get these jobs filled within the Commonwealth? It seems like the market would be like, well, if we've got all these great jobs that pay and we have some
Yes.
skills that we need to provide, there seems to be a lack of
Yes.
nexus to drive that. Is that a place for state government to involve itself?
Yeah,
I mean, I think it is. I
absolutely.
mean, to help these people find where these things are and to, to move workforce development, community colleges, just to talk to each other,
Right. That's exactly right, Chris. And you hit the nail on the head. It's the nexus, right? And that's why I, kind of termed it a market failure because you have this supply of jobs, of really good, high-paying jobs, and you have this talent pool, this human capital that's not being connected up to those jobs. And that's why I talk about the bridge, both in terms of the
Mhm.
training and the education, but also in terms of the awareness. So I think we've got to, at an earlier stage, for many people, particularly our young people, expose them to these middle skill jobs. I mean, you have people who are doing tremendously well as HVAC technicians and plumbers, and I think we need to have an increased focus on apprenticeships. We have seen that apprenticeships have led many people to have great careers. Many of whom people ultimately become small business owners. So they start out, learning, in high school and in community college and in college how to, do one of these skilled trades. They then work in that industry in many cases without having to take on the massive student loan debt that you have to take on to get a 4-year degree or a graduate degree. And they start earning, they learn the skilled trade, again, which is hired locally, and you have a lot of demand locally. And then many of them go on to access capital. They want to start their own small business. So it really is addressing that nexus, that market failure, and letting people know that these are tremendously well-paying, high integrity jobs. I mean, these are great jobs that are at the heart really of our middle class. And so, I'm somebody who
Hmm.
preaches that we have to address this issue, and this is a place where I think government and the private sector can work tremendously well together. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the work that Virginia Free does. I mean, this is right in the wheelhouse. This is not mandating anything, but what it is saying is let's talk to each other, let's partner up, because businesses are looking for this talent. These jobs go unfilled for an average of 26 days. And
Wow.
the loss to businesses is tremendous. The opportunity cost of not producing that extra widget in advanced manufacturing because you don't have the extra middle skill worker to do it.
Right.
So this is a benefit to everybody, and it really grows the pie for business, for workers, and for the Commonwealth.
Well, where's the app for this one? I mean, there ought to be like an app, you know? There's an app for everything. If I want a pizza in half an hour, I get an app, you know? If I want to get a job, you got to wait.
I want a Virginian and a Virginia small business to create that app so that we benefit from it. That could be part of this
Damn it.
initiative.
I come up with all these great ideas to make money for other people. It's just never for me.
Chris, that's why you're a great public servant. So,
Because I have great ideas that don't go anywhere. All right.
you're in the service of others. I love it.
Again, let's jump into healthcare.
Yes.
Aetna announced yesterday it's pulling out of the Affordable Care Act exchange in Virginia, going to leave a lot of people without insurance coverage. Very serious issue right now. Congress is debating again their immediate fixes to another healthcare bill. And I'm going to be honest here. The healthcare bill in Washington is really important, but I care about my healthcare bills. What can we do, or what are your thoughts on healthcare and solving the problems?
Yeah, well, Chris, and of course, we talk, about state level issues for the most part. Obviously, running for lieutenant governor, you want to focus on those, but there are so many federal issues like healthcare that impact our state dramatically, and that we have to, make our voices heard on. I have to tell you, I mean, I'm 100% against this healthcare bill that's being debated today, and obviously, substantively, it is incredibly disastrous. I mean, it would take away, healthcare from 24 million people, is the estimate, which is going to roil, our markets. It's going to destabilize the healthcare industry at a time when we're starting to see positive growth there. You mentioned Aetna, pulling out, unfortunately, from the Virginia Exchange. My hope is that, you'll have, other competitors step up and provide that insurance. I mean, we have a great market here in Virginia. Virginia's a great place to do business. Virginians, are wonderful, hardworking folks. You mentioned our AAA bond rating. I mean, we take care of our obligations, and it is an attractive place for businesses to locate. But we have got to both see this as an economic issue, which is what it is, but it's also, to me, a moral issue. You cannot have 24 million people go without health insurance. It's also the reason I believe we need to expand Medicaid in the Commonwealth of Virginia. And I think there's been an incredibly compelling economic case, not to mention moral case, to expand Medicaid. We know that 400,000 Virginians would be covered under Medicaid expansion. We would create an estimated 30,000 new jobs. We have already foregone $10.4 billion in funds that we would have received from the federal government. And as you have noted before, that's money that could, come into Virginia. It's restricted in terms of how you can use it, but it's certainly the displacement effect and the fungibility of some of these dollars, would be a boon to our economy. We give away $6.6 million every day that we don't expand Medicaid. And we are now in the minority of states on this issue. You have 31 other states in the District of Columbia who have expanded Medicaid, 19 states who have not. Virginia is one of those 19, and we need to change that because the other states have seen the compelling economic and moral case for this, including some states that probably did not, certainly did not vote for President Obama. You have some red states, more conservative states, but they have expanded Medicaid. Kentucky, Utah just voted to expand Medicaid. Kansas. So this is across party lines, and this really goes to the economics and the morality of making sure that more people get coverage.
Well, you bring up a great point there on the health and the moral component to expanding Medicaid. Certainly, John Kasich, governor of Ohio, made that case in the presidential debates a year and a half ago. What I've done in these conversations with candidates to say, okay, we get that. Republicans have a problem with the fiscal long-term implications and the gaps that would come. And Standard
Right.
and Poor recently said, our AAA bond rating, they're taking, a cautious approach. I don't want to mischaracterize what they said. I just read
Right.
the sales,
Right.
the release that they put out, and
Right.
they cite a structural imbalance in our budget for some of the decisions that our General Assembly and Governor have made in concert, both parties. I'm not trying to cast any stones here, but the
Right.
reality is we still have to balance that budget in the out years. And much of
Right.
the argument for Republicans has been to say, well, wait a second, we got a problem that's going to develop here fiscally. How do we overcome that to get to expand Medicaid
Right.
and not have the fiscal hole? I mean,
Right.
is it going to the federal government saying, look, just keep it at 100%, we'll bring the money down?
Well, and of course, in the first Affordable Care Act, as the law was passed, the federal government, picked up 100% of the cost of expansion for the first 3 years, and then every year after that, it went down to 90%. So just went down 10%. The states would take on that additional 10%. But there was a study done, I believe it was an MIT study done that looked at Medicaid expansion and what's happened in the states that have expanded Medicaid versus those that have not. And their conclusion was that expanding Medicaid, just from a purely economic and fiscal perspective, was absolutely the right thing to do. And the states that expanded benefited dramatically, both fiscally and with regard to coverage. I mean, coverage rates, went up dramatically in these states, 80,
Right.
90%. Whereas in the states that did not expand it, you're still in the 40, 50% in some cases. So imagine that $10.4 billion that we foregone to date, how that would have felt. In terms of, you mentioned our outlook for rating agencies. I mean, I bet they would look more favorably on our bond rating if we had an additional 10 or 11 billion
Mm,
dollars in our
okay.
coffers. So part of it is a lost opportunity, but we don't want to continue to lose that opportunity. And here's the other thing: again, 32 other states, and I'm including District of Columbia here, have found that this case makes sense, and they have not experienced any dramatic downward shifts in their economic outlook. In fact, in just about every case, it's been the opposite. They've experienced gains in the way that they are viewed. So people are right to study this. And Chris, you're so thoughtful about this, and I'm a public policy major. That's what I studied at Duke University. I'm on the board of the public policy school there. In addition to being a lawyer, I went to Columbia for law school. But I love digging into the weeds. I love digging into the numbers and making the right decision based on the factors and not just on slogans. But here, I mean, just about everybody who studied this across ideological lines, has come to the conclusion that expanding Medicaid is the right thing to do, again, fiscally and morally, and we'd be in a stronger economic position by doing it. Also, I think there was a lot of debate around this, obviously, over the last several years with the governor and the General Assembly and others. But there were provisions where the federal government was agreeing to give us a waiver to say that look, if this ends up becoming a fiscal problem 3, 4, or 5 years down the road, you can opt out at that point, so you're not on the hook if things were to go a different way than we expect. But even that wasn't enough for people. And again, I've seen people do a complete 180 on this who are 100% opposed to expanding Medicaid, now seeing how it's played out across the country. And again, even very, very red states that were diametrically opposed to this law and to the president, they have expanded Medicaid. In Kentucky, the home of Mitch McConnell, they've expanded Medicaid. So there's an economic case that's being made.
Well, that's good to hear. At least there's information, case studies that you could you share with me that I would very
Right.
much appreciate it, because
Oh,
what we
absolutely.
have to do as a business community is understand the totality of things and really draw back from the
Absolutely.
partisanship
Absolutely.
and support just good decision making
That's right.
processes. But
That's right.
and thanks for your information on that. Very in-depth
Of
answer there.
course.
I really do appreciate it.
Thank you.
Higher
Of course.
education, you've mentioned restructuring debt, refinancing. I
Yes.
think you have a refinancing plan. Tell us about your refinancing plan and who would carry that debt burden, and does that shift any cost to the taxpayers and any liability to the taxpayers?
Yeah, no, I'm happy to talk about it. And this has been one of the signature, priorities, issue priorities that we've had in this campaign. And we want people to be able to refinance their high interest student loan debt, to get that down to market rates, so that it really frees up, their family and their budget, so that they can get their economic life started sooner, start to grow wealth and build wealth by buying a home, getting access to capital to start and grow a small business, investing in their retirement in their 20s and 30s, as opposed to having to wait until their 40s and 50s. And here's essentially how it would work. There's actually been legislation in the General Assembly that has been progressing. It did not pass both chambers last session, but it did pass the Senate with actually bipartisan support, and unfortunately did not get out of the House. But and there was a delegate, Marcus Simon, who's a great friend of mine. He's actually my delegate. We live here in Fairfax County in Annandale. And Senator Janet Howe sponsored, co-patroned the bill on the Senate side. And what it effectively would do is to create a state-based student loan refinancing authority. So really, board, bipartisan. It's not really a partisan issue. 10 or so folks who would start to implement a process by which people can refinance their existing higher interest student loan debt. And I'll just give you some figures about where we are on that. The average debt load for someone getting out of higher education here in the Commonwealth of Virginia is $30,000. That's the average debt load, and the average interest rate on that debt is 8%. So you're talking about rates that they charge in emerging markets these days. I mean, these student loans have effectively become a credit card for young people who are doing just what we asked them to do, which was to go get a higher education, get a skill set, start a career. And so we want them to take that 8% again down closer to market rates, closer to 2.5%, 3%, and that changes dramatically what's possible for them and their families. It can save them hundreds and hundreds of dollars every single month on their student loan bill. Who's really behind this? The realtors. My mother-in-law is a realtor. Shout out to my mother-in-law. She's in Woodbridge, Wanzer, Lee Ramsey, but the realtors are fully behind this because there was a study done that said that for every $250 that you reduce student loan debt, the monthly payment, it equates to an additional $40,000 in purchasing power for a home. So imagine the power of that.
It's great, and the cost of debt is associated with risk. Bonds carry a very low financing rate, so the higher the rate, normally the higher the risk, because that's just the variable that the debt holders carry. So I guess the natural question is, okay, what is being done to lower the risk profile of that debt? Does that obligate taxpayers to pay that debt off?
Yeah, no, it's a great question, Chris. And let me take the second part first, and then I'll go back to the first part. Okay. Other states have done this, by the way. So we have models, and we have some evidence-based studies that we can look at. 9 other states, I think by latest count, have this exact thing in place, a student loan refinancing authority. In fact, Nevada, I believe, just passed legislation to join that group of 9 to also implement this. So this is something, again, that's catching on across the country. We talk about Medicaid expansion. And so we have models to look at. And essentially, you can do it several different ways. And this board would kind of come up with the best way for Virginia, the most fiscally prudent and responsible way. But some models that we have seen are, the state can issue, debt. Can issue tax advantage bonds or tax exempt bonds. You can have, private, obviously, investors invest in this debt. I mean, it's not unlike what we see, in the secondary mortgage market and in other places. And I don't believe it wouldn't be a case where the Commonwealth assumes a ton of debt and it carries it on its books and it carries all the risk. I mean, it can essentially make this debt more attractive to some investors. And there's a growing now national, marketplace for this, and probably international marketplace for this. And again, you obviously have to price the debt, the right way. But interestingly, in the student loan context, I mean, we have a history of trying to even the playing field for folks who are trying to get a higher education. So, for instance, with Stafford loans, everybody gets the same interest rate. It doesn't matter, who you are, if you're eligible for that loan, you get the same interest rate as everybody else. Now, that interest rate is much higher than when I was in school. And it's part of the issue. But it's different. I mean, in this case, it's more like a public good. I mean, you look at veterans. We have a great veteran population here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. When we do VA home loans, again, people get basically the same interest rate because there's a common good being served. We are trying to encourage economic security and opportunity for people who are doing great things. I mean, obviously, our veterans serve this country. Our young people are the future, in many ways of our economy, and so we don't want to put a stranglehold, economic opportunity at such an early stage in their lives. And we want to make it possible for them to start to, again, buy a home, access capital, start a family, because truthfully, that's where the economic growth in our economy is going to come from. It's not going to come from students hustling 2 and 3 lower paying jobs for 15, 20 years to pay off a student loan bill. That's not where the growth is going to come from. I want kids starting companies. I want them to invent and build that app that allows us to create that nexus between employers and folks who can get middle skilled jobs. So that is where the growth historically has been. And this, again, levels out the playing field. And the final point on this, Chris, there's also an equity argument here because, and I've sort of talked about this from a slightly different angle, in our private student lending market, as federal aid has gone down, as tuition's gone up, to come fill that gap, there's been a lot of private student lenders. And many of them do a great job and are scrupulous. There are some bad actors, and we have to obviously weed those folks out. But there is a structural imbalance oftentimes, or structural inequity for certain students because they price that debt, as you mentioned, based on your perceived credit risk profile. And who does that harm the most? Young people who are oftentimes the first in their family to go to college, who don't have parents that have exactly don't have a lot of money. But here's the thing: they're not risky. They've done anything wrong. It's just that their parents, may not have, a house. They may not have collateral. They may not, own stocks or a portfolio. Why? And when we then price their debt higher, so you have students with the least amount of money and the least resources to start, maybe first in their family to go to college, or having to pay a higher interest rate than other folks who have more opportunities. I mean, our kids are blessed and fortunate. They're going to be in that lower risk profile. But why are we stacking the deck against young people of all stripes from all around the Commonwealth of Virginia before they even get started? So we just want to even that out and create more opportunities.
But again, I guess that's the aggregation of the risk profile. So it's not singular. It's collective. You take a
that's right.
Say one kid's chance of paying back $30,000 can be pretty high, but if you bundle it all together and you aggregate the risk profile changes, and so that can help the kids on the lower end while giving them a chance to pull up without weighting them down with heavy percentages on that debt. I know your time is short, and I appreciate it. And I'm just going to pepper you here with some additional questions. We'll try to do rapid fire here because I know you've got a busy day.
No, you're fine. Please, we got some time, so happy to do it.
All right, good deal. Issues that have come up in the Democratic primary for governor, because that's where we are right now. The Atlantic Coast Pipeline. Where do you stand on that?
Yeah, what I've said, Chris, I don't believe that the folks who are advocating for this pipeline and also the Mountain Valley Pipeline, I don't believe they've made the case for it. I have welcomed more information, and again, I'm a public policy major, so I like digging into the numbers. I don't like bumper stickers and slogans. I like to be able to really weigh the pros and the cons, do the SWOT analysis, and what I've seen thus far leads me to believe that they've not made the case as to why those pipelines are necessary. Both the economic case. The environmental case, obviously, there are some serious concerns around the potential environmental downsides. And I've also asked people, about the jobs aspect of this. I think that, there is we do need to be able to create jobs in these areas in Southwest Virginia and Southside Virginia. I'm actually going to be back in Southwest Virginia next week. I'm meeting with coal miners and going to UVA Wise and go to a Southwest Economic Development Forum. So we do have to be very mindful of creating jobs in these areas, good, sustainable, higher paying jobs. People need jobs. I mean, the economies of some of our parts of the Commonwealth have been suffering for a very long time. So we have to create those jobs, but at the same time, we don't want to, unnecessarily, harm parts of our environment to put ourselves at risk. And so again, I don't believe the case has been made, but like I said, I'm open to hearing evidence-based arguments as to why folks think this is necessary.
Why they need to have the gas? Why they need to have the gas in certain regions? That's what you're looking at.
That's exactly. And where this gas is going. I mean, I think that's one of the debates: is this all just going to be exported onto the world markets, which I've heard, some people make the case, or is this going to be used in Virginia to help grow industries here who are in need of natural gas? So, I mean, we got it. First of all, as I think it was Senator Daniel Patrick Moynihan many years ago said that, everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but not to their own facts. And so I think we've got to operate first off of a common set of facts, and then from there make value judgments about the benefit. But again, as of today, I don't believe the case has been made. I also should say I'm against offshore drilling. I think that there's a clear case in my view that we don't need offshore drilling, that it poses a substantial risk to the Chesapeake Bay, to our environment, and to the regional economy. The Bay and the associated activities, produces tens of $billions of economic activity every single year. And it is essential, to fishermen and to other folks who really rely on a healthy Chesapeake Bay. And so, I don't think it is anywhere remotely worth the risk of what we've seen. I mean, we remember what happened in the Gulf of Mexico with the oil spill, the Deepwater Horizon. I mean, that was devastating to that economy. They're still feeling the effects today of that oil spill, both environmentally and economically. And we don't want that here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. So I adamantly oppose offshore drilling here in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Adamantly oppose it. Even if the revenue, I mean, our senators have said they support it if we can get the revenue in from the revenue sharing that would bring in tens of millions of hundreds of millions of dollars potentially to the Commonwealth to pay for roads, education, and the like. Even if we get the revenue royalty sharing, you would be opposed to it.
Chris, I am. I mean, again, I think you talk about risk profiles, and I understand that case, and I understand where other folks have ended up on this. And this has, of course, been something that people, it really cuts across lines too. I mean, I know folks on both sides who have different positions on this, but to me, again, the risks that I have seen in sort of studying this, I don't believe are worth even what we might get, whether it's tens or hundreds of millions of dollars. I mean, again, just looking at what happened in the Gulf of Mexico. I mean, it just was not that long ago. They sustained billions of dollars worth of damage. One oil spill. Again, and the effects are what we're more than a decade.
Under that premise, should we stop all offshore drilling?
Look, I can only speak for the Commonwealth of Virginia. Other states can make their judgments.
But you went to the direction of the risk is too high to drill. Should we ban all sources of drilling then, just because there's been, there's risk in anything? And this goes back to our debt profile. I mean, we're talking about risk, and where are the points in which we say it's an acceptable level of risk versus, oh, gee whiz, that's a little bit too high. And if there is, do we stop it altogether? And this is where we get caught up into the politics of risk and this interplay in politics.
Yeah, well, Chris, I think that you're exactly right. I mean, there's risk associated with everything, and we've got to make judgments about this, right? Both economic judgments and value judgments. And no, I don't believe that again, other states and of course federal government plays a big role in this around the country, and and there are some other places where they do kind of deeper offshore drilling, and they assess the risk in their case and found it to be acceptable. I just do not think, particularly, there are very few places I think that are as reliant on, again, a healthy Chesapeake Bay as the Commonwealth of Virginia. So we are unique in that way. I think that adds to our risk profile.
No one's suggesting we drill in the Bay, but
no, it's not drilling in the Bay.
Let's move off that in the interest of time.
Yeah.
Well,
go
ahead. Let's move off of that. That's more of a federal issue anyway. But one of the candidates for governor has proposed a fairly substantial tax increase. Have you looked at that plan, and what do you think of Congressman Perriello's plan?
Yeah, I've only seen a couple of the bullet points on this. I definitely want to look much more deeply into that plan. I know that another candidate is talking about a tax cut of some kind, and there's debate about where that goes and who benefits from that, and whether that blows a hole in the budget as well. So those are, again, things that I would want to study very deeply. And before making an assessment or a judgment on. But I will tell you this though, Chris. We over the last particularly 3 years or so have seen tremendous sort of economic diversification. I think we have seen a pretty strong economy here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. I mean, 3 or 4 years ago the unemployment rate was about 5.4%. Today it is at 3.8%, and that's the right direction. I think we all can agree that getting closer and closer to full employment is where we need to be, and we've seen capital be attracted here to the Commonwealth of Virginia to the tune of I've seen reports of $14 billion over the last several years. We're seeing growth from companies, so we are moving in a very positive direction. And I don't know that we need to, do, incredibly dramatic things when it comes to our budget, but there are some really bold things that we can do And I talked again about the middle skill jobs, reducing the student loan debt burden. We need to be very mindful of our infrastructure investments. We've got to fix the metro system here in the Commonwealth of Virginia. It is, the lifeblood for so many, for the federal government and its employees, for private sector businesses, and unfortunately, it's in a tough place. I vow, to every single day provide leadership to help get Metro back on track. It's one of the crown jewels of our area, and for 41 years, it provided great service. But I think we underinvested. We didn't coordinate between the four jurisdictions, the federal government, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia, effectively. We did not make the investments along the way. And we have to take a future is now approach to our infrastructure investments, both regarding Metro, our roads and bridges, but also broadband access across the Commonwealth of Virginia. I mean, it is as essential these days as roads and airports. So that's where we stand.
Well, that's great. It's been great talking to you. We'll do an even quicker rapid fire here for you.
Yes, absolutely.
Favorite basketball team? Don't say Duke.
Okay, the Blue Devils.
All right,
and you know what? But you got me on this one because I know that one of your wonderful friends is a South Carolina Gamecock, and you guys invited us to no longer be in the tournament this year.
And you warmly embraced that invitation. You warmly embraced the invitation.
We did, but
and that's why I asked. Just trying to end on a light note here.
Absolutely.
Appreciate your time, Justin. Hey, what's your favorite restaurant outside of Fairfax County when you travel around the state? Where do you like to go?
You know what? I have one in Richmond that I'm not going to say because they always run out of the food that I like, and if I tell more people about it, then I'll never I'll never get my favorite dishes. But I will say it's a Jamaican restaurant in Richmond that I try to go to just about every time that I'm there.
What's the name? What's the name?
If I tell you, Chris, you're gonna run out of they're gonna run out of my favorite dishes. So I can't. I don't know. All right, you know what? I'll give them a plug. It's
I'm
called
hungry.
Jamaica House. I know it's called Jamaica House. It is on Broad Street. It is right across from the Siegel Center at BCU. And I love it. Try the oxtail. It's amazing.
Oxtail. All right. Well, good. Hey, Justin, always a pleasure catching up to you. And then just to let the people know why we're doing this again is we had some technical difficulties the first time, which we seem to have fixed. And we wish you the very, very best on the campaign trail. And thank you for keeping an open mind on a lot of these issues and keeping the conversation going. And we appreciate your willingness to serve the Commonwealth. Thanks for your time today, Justin.
And listen, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for having me on. Again, June 13th is the primary. Our website, of course, is Fairfax, LRLG.com, and be honored to earn the support. And frankly, I look forward to us working together. We are Virginians first. We are a community that really wants the best for every single person here. And I love the spirit in the Commonwealth. My wife is a native Virginian, born in Arlington, raised in Prince William County. We're raising our two kids here, Cameron and Karis, and we want everybody to have the same shot at the American dream that we got. And Chris, thank you for making that possible for so many people.
Well, thank you, Justin, for joining us, and you have a great day out there. Take care.
God bless you too. Thank you. Be safe.
Buddy. Bye.